Hi everyone, this is Alexandre Galin from Rhino 3D Tutorials. I want to show you a little feature that I find quite useful when I want to change line thicknesses when it comes to 2D drawings. I've been asked this question many times over in the past by some of my students, and I wanted to show you how you can achieve that. So I'm going to start with this 3D model. So let's say that you've completed the modeling of that toy, and I want to unfold it as 2D drawings, okay? So for those of you who are not familiar, there's a function that allows me to do that. And basically, you have to select the whole object, like I'm doing right now. So you select the complete object. And under the project curves icon that you see here, if I expand the toolbar, you've got this function called make 2D drawing. So it's a bit like, for those who are familiar with parasolid modelers like SolidWorks, CATIA, or Creo, it unfolds the data, the 3D data, into 2D drawings. So it's going to unfold it as a front, top, and side view, for example. So I click on make 2D drawing, and it's going to show you this option, okay? So if I want to have the top, the back, or the right projection, and you can have the different types of projections as you can see here, okay? So typically I would choose the third angle projection, for example, and you can have hidden lines shown or tangent edges shown. So it's up to you to play with these details. I'm not going to go into the step-by-step for this menu. I've already explained it in my tutorials. So for those of you who are unaware, you can go on udemy.com and you can find some of my tutorials where I show step-by-step all the different features, functions that are available in Rhino, and you can practice and discover with me through some of these tutorials. So it's on udemy.com, or you can go on teachable.com and just key in Rhino 3D Teachable on Google search, and you will find my different capsules where I spend hours and hours showing the different functions from beginner to advanced level, okay? So going back to this menu where I have 2D drawing options, obviously I would click OK, and it would start processing and unfolding each views one by one. So it takes a couple of minutes to do that. I'm just going to click cancel because I've already done so. I've hidden it in a layer. So I'm just going to go to my layers tab, and where it says projection line, I'm going to bring this, sorry, not projections line. I'm just going to unhide my hidden images. So I'm just going to right click on the hide object where it says that. So by right clicking it, I'm going to show it. And you've got these unfolded images here. Okay, this is the result that you would typically get. I'm just going to select my 3D model, and I'm going to left click on the light bulb to hide it. Okay, so left click to hide and right click to show the hidden object, basically. All right, so now that I have my 2D unfolded views, I switch to my top view, and what I did was create a bunch of projection lines. So if I go to my layers tab where I created the projection lines layer, I create a bunch of lines. So I use the line tool. What I did was create an angled at 45 degrees line, and I lined up my images and use the line tool by projecting one by one so that everything lines up properly like that. Okay. So once I've created a line, so let me demonstrate this for you. I use the line tool, and let's say I go to the tip of my gun here. I snap in here on my snapping toolbar, and I'm just going to press shift to lock it along the vertical line, and it's going to find the intersection of my angled line here, and I'm just going to bring it to the top view like so. So now I've got a continuous line, okay, but I want it to be a projection line. So I'm going to go to select that line that I just created. I'm going to click on properties. Under object icon, I've got this menu, and I've got here line type. So I can click to unscroll the menu, and this is a continuous line typically. So I'm just going to switch it to make it a dashed line like so. And there you go. You get the same result as the other lines. So that's what I did for the other lines one by one. I just created projection lines. And I lined up the front part of the gun, the rear part of the gun, the rear part of the boosters, and so on. Okay, so you can use whatever projection lines you wish. Okay, you can define the center line and so on. Okay, I can also select all these lines. So I've already grouped these lines by click on this icon one by one. I press shift and left click to make multiple selection, and then I just left click on group to group all this as one block. And I can select this line as well, press shift and left click, and I'm just going to left click on group to make it another group like that. Okay, so I've got all these dashed lines that I've grouped into one entity, and I'm just going to again go to the menu under the properties tab where it says object. Now I go to display color, and I can make it yellow, for example. So now if I deselect my selection, you can see that my group is switched to a yellow color. Okay, so if I want to ungroup these lines, I can select my whole group, and I'm going to click twice because I grouped twice, and now I've got each individual lines. Okay, so this is group and this is ungroup. Okay, so this line here is a bit different from this line. I don't know if you see the difference, but let me select this line, for example. And if you go in the properties tab under object, line type, this one it's a hidden type of line. Okay, this one is hidden. Okay, and this line here under line type, it says dashed. Okay, if you want to change the pitch of your lines individually, for example, this is a hidden type of line, so it's a different type of dashed line. So I can go and select that line here, and I'm going to go to tools, options, and in the Rhino options or the document properties where it says line type here, you can see the different types of line. You've got the continuous, you've got the border, center line, dash dot, and in my case I use the dashed and the hidden line. So the one that is selected right now, it's the hidden line, and you can see the length of the line, the distance of the gap. And basically what you see here in pattern, this is the length of the line, and this is the distance for the gap between each strokes. Okay, so if I want to change, for example, the length of my line, instead of being 0.2, let's double this. So I'm going to make it 0.4, and you can see that it updates automatically here. Okay, if I want to make a smaller dashed line, so let's say 0.3, whoops, 0.3, there you go. I narrowed down the gap. Okay, so maybe I might want to make it a bit bigger. So let's make it 0.6. So it's a 0.4 stroke with a gap of 0.6 in between each stroke. Okay, and you just click OK, and it's going to update itself like that. Okay, if you want to get it back to continuous, you just select this line, and in the properties tab under object where it says line type, instead of being hidden, you can select continuous, and you get back to this long line. Okay, it's up to you to decide what type of line type you want to create. What I did also here at the bottom, let's say this is the ground line, so I can also select this point here. I'm just going to move it, so I'm going to click on move and just stretch it a bit like that. Okay, so for your information, I'm using Rhino v6, but you can also do this in Rhino v5, obviously. Okay, so now I've done all the different projection lines, and I've got my angle line, and I want to change the thickness of my lines. Okay, so let's say that I want to make the ground line thicker so that we can see better that it's standing on a hard surface. All the lines are the same thickness right now. Okay, so if I go and select this line now, again under the properties tab under object, you've got here print width. Okay, and it says by layer. So if I unscroll this menu, you've got different types of width for your line. So let's say I'm going to exaggerate a bit. Let's say that I want to make this line of thickness 2. Okay, and I just click on the environment. Okay, so now nothing happens, and yet if I select my line where it says print width, it's set at 2. If I select this line here, so one of my projection line, this one is print width by layer. Okay, and they're all by layer by default. Okay, any one of these lines, even my projection line, you will notice that it would say by layer. In this case, it didn't do it for my projection line. I'm not sure exactly why, but anyways, they're all the same thickness. Okay, so even though they look like they're all the same thickness on my viewport, okay, If I click on print, it's kind of hard to see because it's yellow on white surface. But let's say that I want to make all my lines the same color. Let's make it black and white. Okay, so it's all the way to the top where it says destination, output color. I switch it to black and white instead of display color. Okay, so that we can see better. Now you can see that this line is thicker here. Okay, so I'm just going to click on close. I can choose this line here. Okay, and I can go again to print width, and I'm going to select this to, let's say, 0.7. Okay, so it's going to be slightly thicker than my projection lines. So if I go back to my print menu where it says destination, so I chose Rhino PDF. I can create PDF documents, the size 11 by 17, landscape, of course, and then you can either choose vector or raster. I like to keep as a vector output. I find that the lines are crisper. And you can choose print color, display color. So the display color is basically what you see on your viewport. But in this case, for the purpose of this demonstration, I'm going to switch it to black and white so that you can better see what's happening here. Okay. And if I click on print, basically it's going to create a PDF document and it's going to show you the different line thicknesses. So you can try it out for yourselves for a print document, and it's going to show up as a PDF document. But I want to show you how come it doesn't show up on the screen here. There's a little menu and it's kind of weird. I don't know why they did it like this, because I like to have my lines. If I select, for example, this line here, and instead of having print width and changing the thickness of my lines here, and it just prints the thicknesses as a print, I would like it to be displayed on my screen as well, okay? Because sometimes I like to take screenshots and just send a JPEG to my colleagues or whoever I work with to exchange the information. So I like to take a screenshot, but I would like to see the different line thicknesses on my screen. So there's a little function that you can use. It's called print display. So if I type in the command line print, you're going to have here print, which is the conventional printing function. But right underneath it, you've got print display. You click on that, and you've got here state equals off. So by default in Rhino, that's the state it's in. It's at off. You can switch it to on, like that, and you can see the line thicknesses change. Okay? So color print, or you can have display. So I'm going to switch to display, and there you have it. So now I've got a line. So I'm just going to press enter or right click to complete the print display function. And you can see the different thicknesses showing up on your line. So you can see that this line is thicker than my projection lines. Okay. And this line is obviously smaller than this line. So this one is the largest. So I can select this line and let's make it 1, for example. Like that. Let's change this back to a smaller value. So I go to print width and I'm going to switch it to, let's say, 0.3. So this line and this one, let's make it, let's see what happens. I select this dashed line. Let's see if I make it the smallest value or hairline. No, it's okay. It doesn't make that much of a difference. So I'm going to make this one a bit thicker. So I'm going to select this line and make it 0.5. So you get the picture, all right? So I can select the different dashed lines again, one by one. I press shift and do a multiple selection, like so. I can group them. And then I go to the print width and just readjust them to the same thickness. So let's say 0.18, for example. And that's how I create different line thicknesses. This one, instead of being a yellow color, I go back to my display color and I switch it back to black color, like so. Okay, and that's how I like to play with my different line thicknesses. And you can imagine for the contour lines, if you manage to join all these curves into one, for example, you can make the silhouette thicker also. But by the Make 2D also offers the option to make the silhouette thicker than the inner curves also, okay? But basically, that's what I want to show you. It's the function called print display. So you just type print, and it's going to show up automatically here. And you just have to make sure that state equals on and color equals display, and then you just press return, and you should have like I have here. Okay, and then I can add some dimensioning here. So I've got here linear dimensions. So I've already created them. I put them into a different layer. It's called linear dimension. Some basic dimensioning here. And there you go. You can take a screenshot of that. So I'm just going to remove this one so that I can zoom in like that. There you go. And then I can take a screenshot. And so I just sorry, I went a bit too fast. I'm going to switch to the shaded mode. So I go here, I right click, and I take left click on capture viewport to file. Again, I explained this in details in my tutorials. And there's your view capture settings. You can set the size, so it's 2000 pixels in width by 1000 pixels in height. And you just click OK, and it's going to save you in whatever document you want to save it. Okay, so I'm not going to save that JPEG, but you can save it as a JPEG or as a PNG or a TIFF or bitmap. That's up to you. Save it into the file that you wish to save it in. And that's it. You have your document saved as a JPEG with the different line thicknesses, and then you can email it to whoever would be interested in seeing your work. All right. So remember, you just select your line, you go in the Properties tab under Object, and you've got line type here and print width, and you use the function print display to visualize them on your viewport, the different line thicknesses. So that's it for this little tutorial, and thank you very much for your attention. Have a good one.